Hey, what's up guys? We're gonna unbox and set up the rockspace AC2100 dual band gigabit Wi-Fi router. So rockspace reached out to me and sent this router to me for free for a review. They did not pay me for this review, but they did send the router to me for free. This is a wireless AC router. It's obviously backwards compatible with wireless in and below. It supports 2.4 gigahertz and 5 gigahertz, and the cool thing is that it only requires one SSID, so you just make one SSID, one broadcast name, and that's where everyone connects. It has 4 LAN ports, 1 WAN port, and it has a USB port. So let's open this up and see what's inside. So this obviously works if you have a Windows machine, Linux, Android, Mac OS, doesn't really matter. So this thing is going to give internet to everything. So this is the manual, quick installation guide and stuff. And this is the power plug, obviously, regular power plug. And you get a Cat 5 or Cat 6 cable. It looks kind of thick. I don't know what it is. Actually, let's find out if it's a Cat 5 or a Cat 6. Oh, actually doesn't say. But whether it's Cat 5e or above, it supports gigabit, so that's the good thing. So obviously if it's hooked up through Ethernet, it supports gigabit. Okay. So you get 4 antennas. Stating the obvious, obviously. Let's look at the ports. So 4 LAN ports, 1 WAN. WAN stands for wide area network, that's where your internet goes. Power plug. So the USB is typically used to connect like a hard drive to make it into a network hard drive. That's what they're typically used for. I'm not going to use it for that, but we're going to get this set up and we're actually I'm going to run some tests, check it out for a few days to make sure it's good and reliable and stuff. But it's actually pretty cool because you could put Lloyd on here, Zane, and cool. And yeah, you can actually put Legos and it actually makes this router pretty cool. It's actually really cool concept that they put a Lego brick type of floor and you can actually put Legos on it. Okay, so I have the router connected. I have the power here. This goes to the modem, this Ethernet port, and these 4 you can either connect it to another switch, a computer, or whatever device you want to connect with Ethernet. I have mine connected to a switch and these 2 go to 2 other computers. Okay, so you can see the indicator lights going on. You can also disable those if you want. After you have your router connected to the modem through Ethernet, you get the RS Wi-Fi app. You get that from the Play Store or the App Store, depending on if you have Android or iOS. And once you get that, open up the RS Wi-Fi app and follow the instructions. There's one option that's actually going to be 3 options. And it's going to say like, hey, what type of internet do you have? Is it PPPoE? Does it require login info? Is it DHCP? Is it automatically going to do everything for me? Or is it some static IP address thing? I have a cable modem, so I selected DHCP, which is supposed to automatically get everything and assign it. When I picked that option, initially, the router wasn't getting the info from the modem. So I actually tried restarting the router. That didn't work. But then I restarted the modem, and by restarting, I mean I unplugged it for 30 to 40 seconds and plugged it back in while the router was on, and then it connected and it detected all the settings, got the IP address and everything, and boom, internet was working. Then you move on and you essentially type in your SSID. An important note, so SSID is the broadcast name that device is connected to have access to the Wi-Fi network to eventually have access to the internet. Your 2.4 gigahertz SSID name also happens to assign the router that same name. So this is essentially like for admin stuff or like during setup, if you want to change options on the router, restrict things, enhance things, change options. This is by default, it uses your Wi-Fi 2.4 gigahertz username and password, but it lets you change the password to something else. So someone just joining your network is not going to have that information. Granted, you could make a guest network as well. Other than that, it's fairly straightforward to use. You have your 2.4 gigahertz SSID or 5 gigahertz. You can unify it. You cannot unify it inside the RS Wi-Fi app. So the RS Wi-Fi app, think of it as a light version of what the router can do. So in order to actually have access to all of these features that the router can actually do, you actually have to go on a browser and actually go to 192.168.0.1, and there you have all the options to change all these settings, and over there you can unify the SSID to have one SSID instead of two different ones. This router has a lot of options. That's not the only option, obviously. You can obviously change the SSID name, you can do an update, you can turn off the LEDs if you want to, you can set a Wi-Fi schedule. You could say like, hey, I want my Wi-Fi to be off during these days and during these times, or on. You can make a guest network, like I said. You can choose the gain of your antenna to say, hey, I want a stronger broadcast or a weaker broadcast. And if you're wondering, well, why don't you want the strongest broadcast? I mean, that's the one I'm choosing, but I've seen research studies, I don't know if it's true or not or whatever, but they do say like the less radio interference, the better. So someone might say like, hey, I don't really need it to be that strong, so I'm gonna put it down. So, and I think that's why they also have the Wi-Fi scheduling. I'm assuming that's what it is for, so you can pretty much reduce radio signals. So if you're sleeping at night and you don't need to use it, you could turn off the Wi-Fi. But obviously if you have devices that are dependent on it, you can't do that without turning off those devices as well. So something to keep in mind, but it's good that it's an option and you can do it. It supports IP version 6, it supports MAC address filtering, which that basically identifies the device it is, and you could say like, I only want approved devices on my network. So if you're not an approved device, even if you know my Wi-Fi name and password, you still can't connect unless I explicitly go in and say this device can connect, and then if you have the Wi-Fi name and password, then you could connect to it. Speed test. So my ISP provides 400 megabits per second download, 20 megabits per second upload. I got my phone, which has wireless AC, connected to this router, got very close to it, did speed test, passed 400, good to go. I moved a room, 2 rooms away, I should say officially, and I did another speed test. I was still getting over 200, so good there. And then I went to the backyard, I did a speed test, I was getting like 30 down. Then I did unify the connection, so I have one SSID instead of 2, because during this time I was connected to the 5 gigahertz Wi-Fi. I noticed for some reason the speed dropped. So while it was still fine and I was still getting normal speeds, it was slower. Even when I was closer, I think I was getting like 260, 280 megabits per second download instead of the over 400 when I was just connected to the 5 gigahertz. And then when I changed it back to the 5 gigahertz, it was back up to those speeds. So I think there's something with the Unify that it might just be something that, I don't know if they control it or whatever it is, or there's some interference between them. I forget, I don't know exactly what it is, but I noticed when I connected to Unify, it was working a little bit slower. Now, there could be some option there that I could tweak and play with and stuff, but I didn't see anything obvious that I need to change for it to speed up. So while the internet was working fine and everything, again, I'm just doing speed tests, and that's what I'm basing this off of, and the speed tests were slower when there was a unified SSID. Reliability, so I've had it for about a week. Reliability's been fine, no drops in connections, no like the internet's not working, nothing like that. I didn't do any crazy stress tests where I connect 20 or 30 devices at the same time and start doing a lot of things, but from the few devices that I normally use, it was fine. So it really comes down to, for 80 bucks, it seems like a solid AC router. I moved around the house, it was working fine. I wasn't doing any crazy tests with it or anything, but having a few devices on that I normally use, it was working fine. And if you guys have any questions or comments, leave it in the comment sections below. Thank you guys for watching, and thank you to Rockspace for providing me this router to review.